From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 2 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
As the world grows smaller, the ifs are now bigger than ever. If retirement savings can't keep pace with longer lives, if inflation sends the cost of employee benefits higher. For over 135 years, MetLife has provided insurance guarantees for life's many ifs. We have the experience, global resources, and vision to provide financial certainties for an uncertain world. No wonder 70 million customers around the world count on us. After all, we are MetLife.
When you meet our people, understand their vision, the spirit of self-reliance, and legendary can-do attitude. It won't surprise you that so many world-class companies are proud to call Mississippi home. Visit Mississippi.org to see what we can do for you.
Issue 1, post-partisan politics, you be the judge.
The workers who are returning home to tell their husbands and wives and children that they no longer have a job. And all those who live in fear that their job will be next on the cutting blocks, they need help now.
President Obama has spent much of his first week in office reaching out to Republicans. He has been straining to forge a bipartisan consensus, notably on the Obama $825 billion stimulus package. Democrats assert that the money infusion would produce up to 4 million jobs, but that immediacy is essential.
Every week that we delay is another 100,000 or more people unemployed.
Republicans think otherwise. In slashing attacks, Republicans critique the bill, especially for its alleged fat content. Infrastructure, highways, bridges, etc. $366 billion. Jobless benefits and Medicaid, $180 billion. Health care for the poor and unemployed, $127 billion. Local school districts, $41 billion. Federal buildings, $7.7 billion. Amtrak, $1 billion. Digital TV conversions, $650 million. Federal cars, $600 million. Global warming research, $400 million. Sexually transmitted disease prevention, $335 million. National Endowment for the Arts, $50 million. Republicans, every single one of them said no to the above.
It's merely a wish list of long-standing liberal Democrat priorities that have little to do with putting our economy back on its feet.
Spending. Just plain old spending.
Republicans were joined by 11 House Democrats who also voted no. It was an early and crippling setback for President Obama. He had wanted to sign an economic stimulus deal into law by mid-February, 2 weeks from now.
Question, what does this party line vote say about the supposedly post-partisan politics of Obama's presidency? Michelle Bernard.
It says Republicans are finally doing their job. They are going back to basics, limited government. We had spend all on everything you could imagine during the Bush presidency. Republicans, you know, they sort of lost their way, and I think that they decided to band together, look for the pork in this bill. They're not saying, no, we don't want to stimulate the economy, but what they are saying is we need to cut the pork out and actually do things that are going to stimulate the economy, not pay, you know, $100 million for sod on the National Mall.
We've gone from post-partisan to most partisan in 9 days, Eleanor.
Calm down, John. These Republicans in the House are mostly irrelevant. They represent conservative, safe districts. They're the ones who survived the Democratic wins in 06 and 08. They're playing to their base. They're playing to Rush Limbaugh. And when the bill goes over to the Senate and comes back, they'll say it's been modified and they'll be able to vote for it. This was basically just a free vote for the base, and pretty soon they'll be saying we voted against it before we voted for it.
But,
and
I mean,
Obama's still going to get his stimulus package by the middle of February, and it'll be a very big victory.
Without a lot of extraneous stuff in it.
You can't marginalize this vote, Eleanor, by saying it was playing to the base. Only 42% of the American people currently support this monstrosity, and public support is eroding every single day. Look, this is a huge, yes it is, poll after poll now is showing this. Look, the Republicans rediscovered their manhood and they got their groove back. This is the spending bill that ate Tokyo, with about 10%, actually a little less than 10%, directly related to stimulus. The American people do not want to go down the road of socialism. They do not want to go down the road of increased spending. And by 50% in these latest Fox News Opinion Dynamics polls shows that they would prefer cutting taxes to increasing spending. The Republicans, yes, they lost the vote because the Democrats have these big majorities, but I'm telling you that they are right there with the American people.
I mean,
I'll tell you, post-partisan is as illusionary as post-ideology. I mean, there's no such thing. We like to listen to phrases that sounds great, like we're not red states or blue states, but essentially you cannot expect the Republicans not to be Republicans. And I think, notwithstanding their diminishing numbers, they are strong only in 5 states, as I hear. They're going to give him a hard time, and I think everybody's preparing for the midterm elections.
Well, the Republicans decided to let this boondoggle, if that's what it is, rest entirely on the shoulders of Barack Obama. There
are a handful of things you can ridicule in the House bill. They'll probably get taken out in the Senate bill.
Doesn't it look more like a budget
no, it doesn't. It's actually a pretty well organized bill. The largest amount goes to food stamps, unemployment benefits, infrastructure, and it is a pretty well put together bill. And last I checked, the Republicans didn't have an alternative other to say no.
Yes, they do.
Excuse me, Monica, you had your turn. I get to finish. I get to finish. The Republican objections are mostly ideological. They think that helping people with their health insurance costs is a backdoor way to universal health care, and they want more tax cuts. But they lost the election, so get over it.
What did the Republicans propose?
The Republicans offered a competing bill that went down in defeat because they didn't have the votes, comprised almost entirely of tax cuts.
Both individuals and business.
Individuals and tax relief for
What do
businesses.
the Democrats do?
Tax cuts are the only proven remedy that in the history of Western civilization to pull an economy out of a recession. What the Democrats have proposed and passed in the House is such a huge monstrosity, laden down with all kinds of incredible pork barrel spending that is going to stifle whatever kind of recovery we might be going.
Democrats voted it down 266 to 170.
Yes.
So that further enforces the view that this is partisan.
Well, I mean, it was partisan. I will say that the Republicans in Congress, though, most of them have said that they're not blaming this on the president. They're blaming this on their Democratic colleagues. They didn't want to trounce the bill. They wanted to better the bill. I mean, no one can explain how whatever the figure was for STD prevention stimulates the economy.
That's right.
You know, how many jobs does that create?
I can tell you.
Trojan wants that bill.
I agree that was something that should be taken out because people like you can ridicule it, but
how does it stimulate?
Okay.
It is a legitimate line of inquiry.
Planned reproductive rights are
ladies, let me in. Okay, $18 billion to Wall Street bankers.
At a time when most of these institutions were teetering on collapse and they are asking for taxpayers to help sustain them, that is the height of irresponsibility. It is shameful. They have to start acting in a more responsible fashion if we are to together get this economy rolling again. There will be time for them to make profits, and there will be time for them to get bonuses. Now's not that time.
On Thursday, President Obama blasted CEO payouts. He called them bonuses, even though most of those payouts were commissions on sales. His anger stemmed from the news that in 2008, New York City security industry employees received over $18 billion in commissions, not bonuses. It's been noted that Obama's stern rebuke comes from a president, namely Obama, who backed out on a signed agreement to use public funds for his campaign and instead raised, get this, $750 million, $742 million, a history-making amount that some think delivered him the presidency. Question: so who's right? Obama for his denunciation, or capitalists who believe in risks and in rewards? Eleanor Cliff.
John, you must have stayed up all night to find that connection between raising money over the internet in small sums. Look, what the Wall Street masters of the universe did is unconscionable, and at the very least they should have had some public relations advisors telling them how bad the optics are on this. I think the president is right to crack down. The American people are outraged by the disparity between the fact that they go off with their bonuses and their millions while the American taxpayer has to bail them out.
Hisham.
I don't think the president was only reflecting the frustration of many, many Americans, but I think also he was reflecting a historic fact. If you leave unbridled capitalism to do its own thing, the invisible hand, without checking it once in a while, then you end up with a situation like this. The history of capitalism, that's what I studied in school, shows that once in a while government or centralized authority has to intervene to check this unbridled...
You favor a managed capitalism?
Not managed like the Europeans sometimes, you know, but not an unbridled laissez-faire. I mean, that shows...
What do they have in Lebanon? You represent a newspaper that's published in Lebanon.
Yes, I mean, no, we have a capitalist system there.
How capitalist is the system?
Well, I mean, it's very capitalistic, believe me.
More capitalistic than we are?
It is too unbridled.
Right very unbridled.
Yes, very unbridled, yeah. We have banking secrecy. We have all sorts of things. We have a lot of corruption. We don't have sometimes, regulations as people argue here. But listen, really, this is the history of capitalism. There's nothing wrong with that. You go back to the 1930s. Sometimes the state has to intervene as long as the intervention is limited.
Multiple choice question. Is Obama more of a post-partisan politician, B, a penny-pinching populist, or C, a spend whatever it takes pragmatist? Michelle Bernard.
D, none of the above, or all of the above, or a little bit of all of the above. I think Obama is a pragmatist who realizes that there's no cookie-cutter answer to how we get out of this dilemma.
He's not an ideologue.
And he knows that we have to do something. He knows that.
You don't think he's an ideologue?
Probably on some issues, not on everything. I think he seems to be a pragmatist and looks at things on an issue-by-issue basis. I think that he realizes that he has to reach out to Republicans. He has to reach out across the aisle. He needs to be a centrist. You will hear in the speeches that he gives, even as recently as this week, he was reaching out to people who believe in the free market when he said government cannot do everything.
You think
business is the engine
pragmatism
of this
is a dirty word, and despite the fact that James tried to doctor it up with his philosophy of pragmatism?
No, I don't think it's a dirty word.
You do not?
It's the same as being a realist.
Eleanor.
He's a pragmatist on his way to progressive goals, and he's facing an economic crisis that we have really no prescription that we know how to get out of it. And he's doing the best he can based on the advice of economists across the political spectrum, and he would like to have bipartisan support. If he doesn't get it, he'll go it along with the Democrats.
Well, I think, listen, the bipartisanship went in the other direction in opposing this $1 trillion bill.
You know why he wants bipartisan support? You know why?
You want to know why? If this bill was so great, then Barack Obama should have wanted to shut out the Republicans and take all the credit. He knows it's a loser. He knows it's a stinker.
He wants to share the blame?
Share the blame when this thing goes down. Absolutely. And this is why I think, back to your multiple choice question, that he is a classic big government liberal who is wheeling this $1 trillion boondoggle in as a Trojan horse for socialism.
A callous pragmatist. Right?
No, I think a very smart pragmatist.
What do you say, Hisham?
I think he's a smart realist.
Right.
Seriously, I mean, look, even the Republicans even the Republicans in the last few months of the Bush administration realized that the state has to intervene. Things really went on too far. There was no regulation, no control, and that's why we ended up with this crisis.
I think Obama has redeemed himself by being a pragmatist. Issue 2: Hello, Islam.
I have Muslim members of my family. I have lived in Muslim countries. And my job is to communicate to the American people that the Muslim world is filled with extraordinary people who simply want to live their lives and see their children live better lives. My job to the Muslim world is to communicate that the Americans are not your enemy.
This is from an interview this week with an Arabic language news channel. Mr. Obama's first sit-down interview as U.S. President. Hisham Melhem of Al Arabiya, sitting at my right today, and an old hand on the group, conducted the interview and asked President Obama what his directives were to George Mitchell, just appointed by President Obama as the U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East.
What I've told him is start by listening, because all too often the United States starts by dictating, and we don't always know all the factors that are involved. So let's listen.
Question: does George Mitchell's special envoy to the Middle East status mean that Obama intends to be more of a broker in the Middle East than was his predecessor, George Bush? Hisham Melham, welcome, by the way.
Thank you, appreciate it. Obviously, that's the first question I asked him. Are you going to be essentially like Bill Clinton? Are you going to propose ideas? Are you going to propose parameters? Or are you going to be essentially like George Bush, asking both sides to come up with their own ideas? And I think he's going to be more activist. To what extent, we really don't know. And I think he was very cautious on purpose because he's expecting the Israeli elections soon, in a few days, in fact, and he doesn't want to influence the elections in a way that would hurt him and help the people that he does not necessarily want to see winning. But sending Mitchell was a signal in itself. When you mention to people like us in the Middle East, Mitchell, people remember the most important recommendations in his famous report of 2001 when he went there, sent by...
The Mideast report.
Yes, by Bill Clinton at that time, after
What were those recommendations?
The most important one, the Israelis should stop all settlement activities, all kinds of settlement activities, full stop.
Has that been ignored?
Absolutely, completely. On the other hand, the Palestinians were supposed to stop acts of violence against the Israelis.
That's been ignored too.
That's been ignored too, sure, because of the occupation in part, but also for a variety of reasons, the rise of Hamas and all that. The problem is that incredibly important report, which was really done by Warren Rudman and George Mitchell. I mean, these are respectable senators who know the situation.
Did Clinton run with that, or did he put it in the bottom drawer?
It was not Clinton at that time. It was George Bush who was elected after the report was issued. It was George Bush who ignored it. I mean, effectively ignored it.
Yes.
And then George Bush talked about the division of the two states and did nothing. And that's why he was criticized by Obama before the interview and before when he said, "I'm not going to wait until the end of my first term or my second term to engage."
Now, in the first one,
this is the implicit critique of George Bush.
So he gives you an interview, an extended interview, a good interview, a great interview, and he gets into this question of Muslims' relationship, the cultural divide between the United States and other countries like us, and Islamism. Quite remarkable. So he is going to play a big broker role.
I think he was building up to that date when he was going to give an address from the heart of a Muslim
capital.
How
did this go over with the Muslim world, the interview?
The overall reaction was extremely positive. Especially the clincher to me and to many people was when he said, "You cannot demonize me. Members of my family are also Muslims, and I lived in Muslim countries." He was referring to Indonesia, of course, his childhood. He is going to make it extremely difficult, not only for those crazies in Al-Qaeda, but even leaders such as Mahmoud Ahmadinejad of Egypt, to demonize the United States.
I'm going to let you in just a minute. I want to hear Hisham Melham's confirmation that President Obama will visit, get this, a capital city of a Muslim country within his first 100 days.
We're going to follow through on our commitment for me to address the Muslim world from a Muslim capital.
You think that's going to be Jakarta?
That's the buzz. These are the speculations.
That's Indonesia?
That's Indonesia.
Is that like going home for him?
Well, I mean, it will be personal, it will be emotional, it will be emotive, it will be a full circle. And then Indonesia is the largest Muslim country, and it's a safe country in the sense that if he goes to an Arab country or to Turkey or whatever, there will be jealousy, there will be protests.
Okay, with time running out, Hisham asked whether the U.S. can tolerate a nuclear Iran.
The Iranian people are a great people. The Persian civilization is a great civilization. Iran has acted in ways that's not conducive to peace and prosperity in the region. Their threats against Israel, their pursuit of a nuclear weapon which could potentially set off an arms race in the region that would make everybody less safe. Their support of terrorist organizations in the past. But I do think that it is important for us to be willing to talk to Iran, to express very clearly where our differences are, but where there are potential avenues for progress. If countries like Iran are willing to unclench their fist, they will find an extended hand from us.
Question. Obama has made several overtures to Iran by suggesting the two nations should talk. How is Iran responding? Do you have something to say about that, Monica?
Yeah, because Obama in this interview was as conciliatory as possible to the Iranians and other tyrants around the Middle East and elsewhere. And he was essentially asking the Iranians for a change in style. He said, if you just unclench your fist, it'll be easier for us to engage in a dialogue. The Iranians, a couple of hours later, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad went before a group of militants and laid out a whole set of conditions that he demanded from the United States, including a formal apology for unspecified crimes against Iran, and also that the United States back out of the Middle East, essentially leaving the Middle East to the mercy of Tehran.
What's the point?
So I think that Obama has stars in his eyes if he thinks that he can just magically open a dialogue and expect immediate results, especially when the Iranians are within a year of having a nuclear weapon. If they're that close, they're not going to do anything to give that up.
That Ahmadinejad is running the show. Ahmadinejad is running for re-election.
He's running for re-election.
This is electioneering. Yeah, exactly. He said that, but then his foreign minister, Manoucher Muttaqi, in Davos, said something else. If the Americans are willing, if they translate their words into deeds, we are willing to open up too.
Do you think
the problem with Iran, nobody speaks for Iran
itself.
itself.
Do you think Obama will permit, I believe this was the Clinton position, nuclear civilian energy, civilian for electricity? And they stop down the cycle. They stop down the cycle before it becomes fissionable.
We've done it with North Korea. I mean, that's the offer to North Korea, and which is a worse regime as far as I'm concerned. Both of them are bad.
Do you think the United States population, the people of the United States, can live with that?
I'm not sure yet, but I'll tell you what.
You think Israel can?
Well, Israel is another issue. The problem is there is no. Well, look, there is no immediate military solution to this thing, and everybody knows that.
Well, they can stop the cycle before the uranium becomes fissionable, but it will yield electricity. And then they can have the IAEA in there 24 hours a day.
Look, briefly, the Bush administration's isolation of Iran, saying we're going to hide behind Europeans when we talk to the Iranians, not engaging them, did not stop the nuclear program in Iran. That's Obama's argument. Let's go and talk to the Iranians. If they insist on their program, we will be in a much better position diplomatically.
You can't argue that the Bush policy of isolating your enemies worked for the last 8 years. And so Obama pledged in his inaugural address that there would be a new way forward with the Muslim world and a new way forward in terms of aggressive diplomacy. Keep your eye on Hillary.
Issue 3, bye-bye Blago.
Don't be cruel to a heart that's true. Don't be cruel. True.
The fight goes on.
Rod Blagojevich is out as Illinois governor after his conviction in the state Senate impeachment trial on Thursday. The conviction was unanimous. Not a single senator out of the 59 in the chamber voted against conviction. Blagojevich was prevented from bringing witnesses, and only 4 snippets of the taped conversations were allowed as evidence. Former Lieutenant Governor Pat Quinn was sworn in as Illinois' new governor.
The people of Illinois, the ordeal is over.
Question, how badly has the image of Illinois been blemished? I ask you, Michelle.
It's pretty bad. It has been political theater like no one could possibly imagine. It has gone on and on and on. And what happened earlier this week is not the end of it. He is going to go through a criminal trial. Who knows what's going to happen? And quite frankly, if the tapes that come out when he does go to trial look terrible and somehow he outsmarts the jury system and gets a not guilty, Illinois will be the laughingstock of the nation yet again.
Okay, about 2 months ago, U.S. Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald appeared on national television with a federal criminal complaint on corruption charges. That greased the skids of Blagojevich's impeachment trial.
Governor Blagojevich has taken us to a truly new low. Governor Blagojevich has been arrested in the middle of what we can only describe as a political corruption crime spree. The conduct would make Lincoln roll over in his grave.
Blagojevich has not been indicted on any of the charges made in the criminal complaint. Fitzgerald has until early April to bring an indictment. Question, has Blagojevich been railroaded?
I think Fitzgerald has collected stuff on him for the last 4 years. Assuming this goes to trial, I think he will make his case. But I'm getting tired of kicking him around. And Blagojevich, I mean, enough already. I think he has some serious mental issues of sort of.
What do you think about Fitzgerald going before national microphones and reading snippets, segments of a transcript of recorded conversations, not the whole thing, but snippets, and declaring that Lincoln would turn over in his grave, and the level of corruption was, I'm using my language to describe what he said, equivalently monstrous. Now, what is that in our society where the special prosecutor will, does that taint a possible jury pool?
Well, it might. I mean, we don't know. I agree with Eleanor. Fitzgerald has been on Blago's case now for years, so whether or not he can actually bring an indictment on the specific allegations in this selling of the Senate seat, or whether he has a whole range of charges to bring against this guy is a different issue. Blago went on The View and CBS and NBC and the whole thing Monday when his impeachment trial started, and the case he was making is exactly that. But the standard in an impeachment trial is different than in a criminal case, so Fitzgerald really has to
What do you think of Fitzgerald's behavior?
What do you think
of Fitzgerald's behavior?
Well, I mean,
going before
right.
TV nationally, internationally,
right,
and saying
calling
the things
it a
he
criminal
said
crime spree
on a complaint.
Well, listen, when he was, this was right after he was arrested, so he needed to say something.
Well,
Does anyone think that the any members of the legislature in Chicago are involved in this?
No, I think they wanted to shut this down because they didn't really want him bringing witnesses because other people could be involved.
Well, there
pay
could be
to
another
play is sort of embedded in the system. So they, by embarrassing him, they avoided embarrassment of themselves. But that doesn't mean that he's innocent.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
As the world grows smaller, the ifs are now bigger than ever. If retirement savings can't keep pace with longer lives, if inflation sends the cost of employee benefits higher. For over 135 years, MetLife has provided insurance guarantees for life's many ifs. We have the experience, global resources, and vision to provide financial certainties for an uncertain world. No wonder 70 million customers around the world count on us. After all, we are MetLife.
When you meet our people, understand their vision, the spirit of self-reliance, and legendary can-do attitude. It won't surprise you that so many world-class companies are proud to call Mississippi home. Visit Mississippi.org to see what we can do for you.